Hey guys, so I wanted to share the recipes for my vegan feasts, my holiday feasts. I've been doing a video here and there, but I realize I'm not actually putting out the recipes and people are asking for them. So I want you to know, first of all, there's a couple different ways that you can do each of these dishes. There's different substitutions that you can use. I've done them a couple different ways and they're all good. There's basically like a high fat and medium fat and a low fat way that you can do all four of my dishes, or at least a couple of them. Because the four things that I really rely on for holidays are Gardein holiday roast with the gravy, which is amazing. Love that. And then there's a sweet potato mash type of a casserole, which actually is pretty low fat in itself. So really only one version of that one. But there's a couple different ways you can do the mashed potatoes and a couple different ways that you can do the green bean casserole. So I'll focus mostly on those. As far as the mashed potatoes go, I always be sure and I try to use like a Yukon potato or a really big fluffy one. Always salt the water. I like to, my personal favorite way to do it is actually not peel it entirely, but maybe about halfway peeled, and then put them into the water whole. This helps with the starches. You don't want to get too much water in there. So if you have time, you can do that. Obviously, it's not crucial. It's just going to help them be more fluffy in the end. So salt the water, and you want to put them in the water before they get hot. Also, when you're putting in your ingredients, whichever ingredients you decide to use, you want to make sure they are at least warmed up to room temperature or warmer. You don't want to be putting in cold, ingredients in with your hot mashed potatoes. So just boil your mashed potatoes till till you can stick a fork in them easily. And you really don't want to overwork your mashed potatoes. I like to mix by hand. Again, sometimes leaving some of that skin on can add an extra, flavor. But especially if you're doing them whole, you might not want to leave all the skins on there. And sometimes it's actually easier to take the skins out afterwards. So however you want to do that. But basically, the recipe that I came from was, a highly fattening, this is like holiday mashed potatoes. This isn't your average mashed potatoes that you would make on an everyday basis. It calls for 1 cup of butter and 2 cups of half and half. And then you can, put in chives and pepper and whatever you want. But like I said, I don't use vegan butter. Technically you could use oil if you wanted to. I actually in the past have taken those 3 cups of ingredients and broken them straight down into a regular 1 cup of, say, whatever milk you have. I think we were using almond milk or soy milk, whatever, it doesn't really matter. And then I would use 1 cup of coconut yogurt. And then I would use about 1 cup of the culinary coconut milk in a can. Now, this last time I decided to, actually I kind of messed up and I put in way too much coconut yogurt. And I definitely don't recommend overdoing the coconut yogurt because it'll give it a, too sour of a taste. I would recommend if you want to do a little bit lower fat version of this, I would just recommend 1 cup, 8 ounces of coconut yogurt, and then just milk, just whatever your regular milk is. And that's definitely a lower fat version. Now, if you want to go to a fully, like, super low fat, I just recommend, and this is what I usually do at home, I just add a veggie stock instead of the butter. So again, you can play around with it. You can find out what exactly you like. Some people aren't going to like the coconut milk. Some people aren't going to like, like we use the vanilla milk and we're like, oh, who cares? And so again, don't over mash. And you can definitely put these, in a pan, cook them, then you can save them for a few days and reheat them. They will be perfectly fine. Here they are. So on to the green beans. This is one of my favorites. Basically, I just go straight from the, the Campbell's soup recipe, which calls for a can of mushroom soup, 3/4 cup of milk, and then your pepper and your French fried onions. Now, let me say, I always use either fresh or frozen. I do not like canned green beans. I think it really makes a difference. You just have to be careful about your amounts because when you're using, the longer green beans, they're more bulky. And a lot of times I've ended up with way too many green beans and way too little of the good stuff. Last time I used fresh and that was okay too. I just don't like the canned style. So I like this a lot better. And I wanted to show you the type of onions we're using are not the French's. The French's have palm oil, which I now avoid. And these, probably not the healthiest thing. They do have health food stores, which I didn't have at my health food store, so I wasn't able to pick those up. But I did find these, and like I said, no palm oil, so that's good. If you get the health food store ones, I'm sure they're even better. Really though, this is like one of those things that's impossible to mess up. I thought I've messed it up before, and it's easy to save. So let me start from the top. The can that they use, that Campbell's uses, is like about 10.5 ounces, but I kind of have just always figured it was a 16-ounce can. So you can use a soup for that if you want to. You can use the coconut milk with all the fat, and you can add in mushrooms to make up for the fact if you're using something that doesn't have mushrooms and you really like the mushrooms in there, just, obviously chop some mushrooms up there and throw them in there. You could use what I think would really work really well would just be the mushroom gravy. Just use between 10 and 16 ounces of that. If you're just using coconut milk or the coconut yogurt or something like that, you want to make sure and add some more pepper and add some more seasonings. You might want to add in the mushrooms and things like that just to make it a little bit more flavorful. So 3/4 cup of milk, very straightforward. Use whatever milk you want to. If you want it to be, higher fat and better tasting, then you could go even to some cream or something, especially if you're using a lighter form of the soup. So again, it calls for 1/8 of a teaspoon of black pepper, but you want to put at least double that if you're not having extra flavors in from your soup. Okay. 4 cups of cut green beans or 2 cans. I never use the cans, so I had to kind of struggle with this on how exactly much. If you're using frozen or fresh, you might want to break them. I think that probably would be best. Sometimes they're sticking out and everything. It doesn't really matter, but definitely try to, get it to where it's about 4 cups or so, because you don't want to have too many green beans and too little of the rest of your mixture. However, if you do run into that problem, it's not a big deal. I have messed this up numerous times using way too many green beans because I didn't break them down and they were frozen and hard instead of in a little can, So what I ended up doing is just literally adding in more soy milk or almond milk or whatever to the top. If your mixture comes out too thin, you can always just stir in a little bit of wheat flour or whatever flour and then keep baking it. This is something, again, you can't mess it up. You can stir it up, mix it up. So the flour is the trick to get it thicker if you need it more thick. I mean, obviously that's the easy fix. So the flour is the trick to get it thicker if you need it more thick. I mean, obviously that's the easy fix. Go ahead and put the 2/3 cup of French fried onions inside. Again, you want to use the good ones and not the palm oil ones. And you just bake it for 30 minutes or so. And if you need to bake it more, if you need to rebake it, again, this is something you can bake, to where it's cooked, and then go ahead and put it in your fridge for a couple days and it will be fine. So you just top with more French fried onions and cook for, that last 5 minutes or so they get all golden brown. And voila, you have green bean casserole. So the last thing I'm going to talk to you guys about today is the sweet potatoes. Usually this is enough for dessert. It was funny. I actually bought ice cream to have for dessert on Christmas while everybody else was having pie, but I didn't need it. I didn't even think of it because these sweet potatoes are absolutely enough to have. They're sweet enough to have for a dessert. So, you can put them on your plate during or after or both. So it calls for about 5 sweet potatoes. The original recipe called for about 1/4 cup of butter, 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar, pinch of cinnamon, 3 tablespoons of OJ, which I do think is very important, and then your mini marshmallows to cover on top. And you can use, if you don't like the mini marshmallows, you can leave it off. Maybe sprinkle with a little bit of pecans or something at the very end. You don't want to put the pecans in the beginning. I find that they get a weird texture. So obviously you can use whatever butter substitute that you want if you don't want to use the palm oil like I do. You could use, again, the culinary coconut milk is probably one of the best, tastiest choices. You could probably even just use a little bit of milk. This is a very forgiving recipe and it tastes great on its own because you've already got those flavors. The butter is just for that added, fatty texture. So probably, again, use oil or whatever else you wanted to use. But again, I don't recommend using the earth balance. So you just cook the potatoes. Again, I do it the same way, whole potatoes, mash them up after you drain them, and then add all your ingredients. And then usually I find that the marshmallows take, again, between 5 or 10 minutes. So when you're done with it, again, I put it in the fridge for a couple days because I don't like to be cramming right before the holidays. And then when you heat it up 30 minutes or so, and then go ahead and put your marshmallows on at the last minute and watch them very carefully because they will bubble up and go over. Some people like them more crispy and done. Some people don't like them once they've broken. So it's really kind of up to you. So that's pretty much it. That's how I do it. That's what you saw for my lovely meal. So I hope this helps you guys. Let me know what you think. If you have any tips or tricks that you think could improve upon these recipes or ways that you've tried it where you like it, definitely share below. If you have any other suggestions. Oh, one thing I think I was going to go ahead and start doing, instead of doing all of these different dishes, I really feel like I'm, if nobody's going to go vegan, I'm going to stop cooking all of these 3 different dishes. Not that it's that hard or anything, and I do like the leftovers, but I may just try to do an even lower fat, just straight up mashed potatoes and green beans in one dish. You know what I mean? So instead of trying to do all this coconut butter for the creaminess, I'll just have like a layer of mashed potatoes, do the green beans on there with the French fried onions on top. Really, it's about just figuring out which flavors you absolutely need to, for you to make it your own. And I do enjoy cranberry sauce too. I've always liked the little jelly cranberry sauces, and they have good organic ones that are vegan at the health food store too. So that's another side addition, and maybe some salad on the side too. But it's a full meal, and I don't find that I ever miss anything that anybody else is eating, and I haven't for years. So hope you guys enjoy. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to eat your fruit, and I'll talk to you later. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys. This stuff is absolutely amazeballs. The gravy is literally the best vegan gravy I've ever had in my life.